At about 10 p.m. on November 6, 2012, television stations around the state declared that Idaho voters had rejected all three of the so-called Luna laws by overwhelming margins. It was a moment for Idaho's educators to celebrate. They clapped, they cheered, many cried in joy. But as they returned to school the next day to resume doing what they always do for Idaho's kids, some in Idaho reflected on how educators and parents working together could have taken on the state's political establishment and won. Well, to tell the truth, the story of 2012's smashingly successful victory at the ballot box began in the small office of the Idaho State Superintendent of Public Instruction 120 years earlier. From its founding in 1892 with the leadership of State Superintendent J.E. Haroon, the Idaho State Teachers Association, or Idaho Education Association as it is known today, has remained true to its original mission: to promote the educational interests of the state and to further ensure the future progress of the teacher's work as a profession. During its first convention, the new association's members called for increased standards and qualifications for teachers and administrators, the creation of a teacher training school, equality of education for children no matter the wealth of their community, and fair and competitive salaries and workplace conditions for teachers. The young association soon tackled an expanded sphere of concerns. In 1903, delegates to the annual meeting recommended a maximum class size of 40 students in the lower grades. At the turn of the 20th century, the ISTA focused on accrediting high schools. In 1904, the ISTA lobbied for free public high school for all students. In 1915, thanks to the ISTA, the Idaho legislature extended the minimum school year to 7 months. In 1920, the ISTA identified the prime causes of unrest among educators. They included insufficient salaries, poor buildings and equipment, indefinite contracts, unpleasant social and living conditions, and poor community relations. In 1927, the organization changed its name to reflect its broad mission for education throughout Idaho. It became the Idaho Education Association, the name it still proudly bears today. Just as the association found its legs, the Depression hit, forcing many schools to close, leaving rural children, especially, with no place to attend school. Although increased salaries were not a particularly popular topic during the Depression, some advances were made in the late 1930s to bring teacher salaries up to a meaningful level. The IEA suggested a minimum single salary schedule in all school districts, which would provide teachers with a college degree a whopping $100 per month. By 1936, changes in certification standards recommended by the IEA required elementary teaching applicants to complete practice teaching and high school teachers to earn a college degree that included education-specific training. Additionally, the first discussion of a longer tenure for teachers occurred during this era, and in 1939, the IEA recommended an intensive study of retirement options. With the onset of World War II, Idaho faced a teacher shortage and a loud cry for increased salaries. The teacher shortage led the IEA to lobby successfully for a great number of reforms, including the creation of a voluntary retirement system in 1946, continuing contract protections in 1955, minimum salaries, strengthened certification requirements that mandated all teachers have at least 4 years of accredited college training, and further consolidation of school districts for consistency and efficiency. Decades of advocacy resulted in even more improvements in the 1960s and 70s. In 1965, the Idaho legislature adopted a long-standing IEA goal of a statewide sales tax that was intended to bring major funding increases to schools and teachers' salaries, reduce property taxes, and draw more skilled workers to the state. Thanks to the IEA's leadership, the sales tax survived a referendum vote the following year. During these unstable years, the IEA decided it could no longer eschew direct political involvement and created its Political Action Committee for Education, or PACE, in 1966. The 1967 legislature established a statewide public employees retirement system, but passed a meager education budget. When teachers vowed to ask the IEA to impose sanctions on the state in the wake of that legislative session, legislators threatened to repeal the new retirement program. Nevertheless, the IEA's delegate assembly voted to place an advisory sanction on the state. The sanction warned prospective teachers to weigh job proposals carefully before accepting assignments in Idaho. With a large appropriation increase in 1969, the IEA voted to lift the sanction. The IEA's increased political activism produced more results. In 1970, the newly created Professional Standards Board, which 2 years later became the Professional Standards Commission, adopted a code of ethics for the teaching profession in Idaho. In 1971, lawmakers approved professional negotiations as the method for teachers to bargain their contracts collectively. 4 years later, the legislature added public kindergartens to Idaho's education landscape. As the 1980s dawned, a major challenge facing Idaho teachers was ensuring that salary schedules remained competitive with surrounding states and that teachers were provided with the professional training and support they needed. To make their point, more than 4,000 IEA members representing 2/3 of Idaho's school districts marched on the Capitol on February 1st, 1980. The rally may have been the state's largest in history to that point, and legislators seemed to take note. They passed a substantial increase in the state's education budget that year. IEA members also gathered by the thousands on the State House steps in 1986 and in 2002. Twice in the mid-'80s and again in the mid-'90s, the IEA issued plans for improving education in Idaho. IEA called for such reforms as increased admission and graduation standards for teacher preparation programs, better preparation for school administrators, shorter teaching days to allow more time for professional growth, improved school nutrition, the employment of full-time nurses and certified librarians at all levels, and the passage of anti-child abuse laws. Responding to IEA proposals, the legislature enacted a mentoring program in 2001 and recognized with an additional stipend those teachers who had successfully completed the rigorous National Board Certification Program. The education reform debate included discussions about how teachers should be paid. Again, IEA members led the way through research that resulted in a proposal for career ladders in the mid-1980s. Building on its long-standing belief that the sales tax could help fund Idaho's schools, the IEA launched an initiative campaign in 2006 to add a penny tax increase dedicated to education. The actions of a special session of the legislature shortly before the election effectively scuttled the initiative. Teachers and educational support professionals also spoke out on behalf of their students and profession at the local level, especially by working to elect pro-public education candidates to local, state, and federal offices, and by bargaining contracts that address such concerns as class sizes, curriculum development, preparation periods, professional support, and salaries. Of the thousands of contracts bargained since 1971, in only 18 instances has a strike been involved in the process. The last strikes were in 1991. Local IEA members also reached into their communities to support their students. They distributed IEA-produced pamphlets on such issues as discipline, parent-teacher conferences, suicide prevention, anti-bullying, after-school activities, and summer reading suggestions. In addition, the IEA honored schools throughout the state for excellent performance and innovation. In 1996, the IEA created the Children's Fund to help students meet basic needs, such as eyeglasses, dental work, clothing, and medical attention. Since then, IEA members have raised and given away more than $1 million to students in virtually every community in the state. At the beginning of the current decade, the IEA once more had to defend the public schools and their employees from cuts and attacks on fair employment practices. IEA members refused to accept measures they knew to be detrimental to providing a quality education for all children. With the hard work of IEA members and the financial donations of both the IEA and the NEA, the so-called Luna laws were resoundingly rejected by Idaho voters in the 2012 election. Those who make history rarely understand the significance of their actions at the time. Such was surely the circumstance when Idaho's education leaders founded the Idaho State Teachers Association on March 3, 1892. The education provided to our state's students, the professional and personal lives of educators, and the benefits Idaho has reaped would be significantly different had not dedicated Idaho Education Association members maintained the organization's fundamental focus of fighting for high quality and equal educational opportunities for all children for more than 120 years. It's a proud history, one that continues to be written by IEA members every day. What will the next 120 years bring? No one knows, but it will definitely be brighter because of the commitment and creativity of Idaho's public school educators. Together, the members of the Idaho Education Association will continue to lead the way.